Good afternoon, everyone. From the right wing, COVID denying, climate change denying, racist, pro-Trump, Brexiteer. How is everyone today? Hope you're good. Now, so far, I've made the highly dangerous and irresponsible decision to come out on a walk on a hot day. I know that it's a selfish decision and I could end up overwhelming the NHS by making this decision. But so far, I've not disappeared, in a molten pool of lava on the floor. I'm still living and breathing, and I will keep you up to date with my progress in the next couple of days during this heat wave. It was interesting. Last night I watched the BBC weather forecast, and I don't know what I would have done without the tips given in that forecast. To keep the curtains closed. I would never have thought of that. To have a cool shower. Who would have thought? Oh yeah. To have a cool shower and to drink lots of water. Thank God for these experts giving these tips on how to survive in the next few days. Now, enough of the sarcasm. Although, I guess I'm not really being sarcastic, but you know what I mean. I want to talk about weather and climate and the media manufactured hysteria, or attempted manufactured hysteria, over the last few days, which I actually predicted a couple of weeks ago. And the reason is, to give you a bit of background, one of my interests from a very, very young age is weather. I'm fascinated by it, always have been, particularly in this climate that we live, this oceanic temperate climate in the UK, which rarely gets extremes of weather. So when it does, that's exciting for me. My dream holiday would be to go chasing tornadoes in the Midwest, and I will do that one day, Midwest USA. If one of them gets me, what better way to go out? But no, I'd love to. Yes, I've always been interested in the weather, and a couple of things to be said first of all about this heat wave, because I've heard a few people saying that it's normal summer temperatures and we've had this before. Well, that's simply incorrect. Not correct at all. It is unprecedented, whether we care to admit it or not. The temperatures forecast, not for today but for Monday and Tuesday, 40 plus degrees in the UK. That is unprecedented. It's not happened before. It will have happened before back in the midst of time, but not in recorded history. So I think it's a good and a wise thing to acknowledge that, rather than pretend that it's going to be just a normal heat wave. So I will say that. However, what the broader points about what the media are attempting to do at the moment. Now, just go back to the start of the COVID shenanigans. Right at the start, we look back and we see the only people really who needed to be protected, there did need to be some level of care and concern and planning for, I think, were very old, stroke and or very old, very ill old people, or very, very young people. Now, as we know, the country and the society failed those groups that actually are vulnerable. Everybody else, if they would have had a modicum of common sense, whatever that is these days, awareness, ability to engage in debate, all the things I've talked about before, would have realised that COVID, or whatever it is, was a exceptionally minuscule threat to them, and that the wholesale changes dictated to by those who have no right to impose on society did not need to be made. Now, it's a similar thing that's happening with this. The usual, thousands of people are going to die, NHS is going to be overwhelmed, all the usual stuff. Is there ever a time when the NHS is not about to be overwhelmed? I am sick to death of hearing about our precious NHS and how the doctors and nurses there are struggling. So don't get me started on them. Thousands of people are going to die. You know, this is a sign of things to come. You know, just massive fear whipped up around what is forecast to be at this stage a 2-day very, very intense heat wave. Absolutely. With an incredibly hot night tomorrow night, Monday. Yeah, of course, be uncomfortable. It won't be particularly nice, but some people may enjoy it. But the nanny statism around it, you know, the lecturing by the usual suspects, you know, the technocrats and the bureaucrats in these positions of power who will weaponize anything to lecture to us about how to live our lives, and who will do that around a narrative of fear. And that's exactly, you know, what we're seeing. And I find it incredible. And here's the thing, right? I'm on a weather forum. I've been on there for 22 years. I don't contribute. I just read it because, as I say, I'm very interested in the weather and I've learned a lot. You know, I'm not an expert or anything like that. It's exceptionally complex. There's nothing more complex in existence than weather and climate. I'll come to that in a minute. But I've learned a lot on that forum. But I've also noticed you know, it's a microcosm of society more broadly, and that forum now is not really a place for free speech when it comes to exchange of ideas about climate change. It's increasingly an echo chamber now of individuals who are comfortable. Not everybody. You know, there are some who don't bring politics into it at all, or, you know, they're big ideologically motivated crises at the moment manufactured into it. They just comment on the weather. But there are many on there who will happily talk. They love talking about it. COVID, bringing COVID into it. Brexit and how it was a stupid decision. The Tories, you know, all the usual thing. I've read the last few days. It's they're saying things like people aren't taking this heatwave serious enough, and it's the same types, the GB news watchers, the ones who won't wear masks, the COVID deny, all this kind of thing. And the first point I make is, you know, don't underestimate the number of people who, you know, are out there who are as passionate in their position as we are in ours. Do not underestimate. The difference is these individuals are very censorious and they won't engage in debate, and largely narcissistic and immature, and I'll probably come to that in a minute as well. But how bad's that though, that you've got a subject, climate change, on a weather forum where you've got people who are interested in the weather who feel like they quite clearly feel like they can't contribute because they're not, and the odd one who does, you know, is shot down. How bad's that? I'll just come back to the heat wave again. What's causing it? Because, you know, if you read The Guardian or the BBC or, you know, all the usual suspects, it's climate change. I'm hearing actually now, it's not even climate catastrophe. And first of all, global warming, then climate change, climate catastrophe. I'm seeing now climate breakdown. We're in the midst of a climate breakdown. I mean, take a step back. Take a step back. That is a leap of faith, that, to go from, you know, a forecast, as I've said, of unprecedented temperatures to that. That's the climate breaking down. Right, okay. Weather and climate, exceptionally complex. Trillions upon trillions upon trillions of calculations are done every second that is, to produce weather forecasts. That's weather. That's not even getting onto climate. The longest standing temperature records in the world are the Central England temperature series dating back to the 1600s. That's only 400 years worth of records, and it's not perfect. Other parts of the world, records only date 50 to 150 years previously. So, you know, when we're hearing these things about climate breakdown, climate catastrophe, framed as well through, you know, a lens of real confirmation bias, i.e., you know, there'll be massive focus on the heat wave that's gripping Western Europe at the moment. And it's a heat wave, it's a massive heat wave. You won't hear so much, if at all, about the fact that you know, at the moment, The North Pole is much colder than usual. Australia has had some record low temperatures recently, and so has the Midwest and the deep South USA in the summer of 2021, record cold. Let me also point out as well, I'll give you a bit of balance. Yes, every month this year has been above average temperatures. But let me also say, it was only 12 years ago that the UK had one of its coldest months ever on record. I think it was the second or third coldest month, December 2010. March 2013 was one of the coldest Marches ever on record. Everyone will probably remember the Beast from the East. I mean, everything has to have a stupid name these days, doesn't it? But that contained the coldest ever spring day. That was only 3 years ago. We had a run of very, very cool and wet summers from 2007 to 2012. It's like that, statistics and what is it? Lies and statistics, or whatever the phrase is. Yeah, you can do what you want with statistics, which is why it's important to have a debate. Is there a debate around climate change? No, and my worry is that it's been censored already for the last 10 years, and I think most people believe in man-made climate change without really being able to understand why or explain why. And I'm sorry that I say that, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but it's just based on some conversations that I do have. Similar to the COVID thing, well, what is it tell me what it is that explain rationally what it is that you're scared of. And they can't do it. So we've got a debate that's been censored for at least 10 years, that all of the mainstream media, right, left, on the political spectrum, it's all a load of rubbish, all that anyway, all buy into, the same as they all bought into COVID, all buy into the Ukraine, Russia, all buy into the LGBT, Black Lives Matter, all the rest of it. You know, the big narratives of the day that are decided for us. I hope you can hear me okay here. Right, I'll tell you what, I'll run past here, whatever's. There we go, have a little jog, and then I'll carry on. There we go. Hopefully you can hear me okay again. The horses over there having their breakfast. Nice bit of grass. So, let's consider, you can't just hear the phrase, this is climate breakdown, this is because of man's activities, without a debate on it and expect to be taken seriously. So I'll, go through some factors here of what's caused this heat wave. Weather synoptics, synoptic pattern, orientation of high and low pressure systems in exactly the right place to affect exceptionally hot air over the UK. Very, very high upper air temperatures, very dry ground. There are a number of factors that are influencing this. The question then has to be, or the questions then have to be, why are there exceptionally hot temperatures in Spain and North Africa at the moment? But then you say, why are there exceptionally cold temperatures in Australia and over the North Pole? Why is it that we're in a prolonged period of dry weather? But why is it that, only a couple of years ago we were in a prolonged period of wet weather? You can't just blame everything on climate change without making an attempt to understand the dynamics of weather, which even the cleverest meteorologists in the world do not. We understand space and astronomy better than weather and climate. We do. In fact, that might be a reason for space exploration and, astronomical kind of like discovery and intrigue, because possibly provides some clarity on, things, on this planet, like meteorology, weather, climate, etc. But it's so interesting how people like me are bandied into this group called, the same types, the COVID deniers, the anti-vaxxers, the Brexiteers, the GB News watchers, all the rest of it. I read this weather forum, and over the last couple of days, as much as there's interesting stuff, and I'm looking at the weather charts and I'm enjoying learning more things and all that kind of stuff, the comments that are being made by the same people who are can't let COVID go, who, you know, are spouting things like gammon, the gammon, working class gammon who don't know what they're voting for, and all this kind of thing, are the same ones who are properly like losing their shit over this. You know, not only is it climate change, but the things that they're suggesting are absolutely bizarre. You know, some of them are even saying to the government should be imposing a 2-day lockdown. Well, I'm sorry. I mean, clearly you wouldn't even think that, you know, unless your job and your income, you know, wasn't dependent on having to go somewhere to work. So my concern is, well, another thing I'll say as well, you know, you've probably seen there's loads of things going around, quite funny. You know, the best one I saw was people scared to death of 35C. It'd be hotter than that in this country, but who will happily take 2 experimental vaccines in order to go and sit for 2 weeks in 40 degrees C. It's quite funny, that, it really is, you know. But forget about all the humorous side of it. There needs to be, as they did with COVID, there needs to be a debate. There needs to be a debate around not only climate change, right? I mean, that's something. Forget man's activity on climate, right? Just climate change. Why can't we have a debate on climate change? What is climate change? Let's define that. What is it? That's the first question. What? And then, well, before that, what is climate? What is climate? So then before that, we'd have to, right, let's have a basic understanding of what weather is. You know, what's the prevailing weather pattern in each individual country? What's the climate in each individual country? Which way does the wind blow from most? You know, what's the most common weather type? Hello?
Hey, mate.
And then maybe we can move on to climate and discuss what climate is. And then maybe we can make the acknowledgement first and foremost of we don't know what we don't know. That's about climate change. Then, to be able to prove, if you can prove then that the planet is warming, right, at a rate faster than at any other time in history. Oh, it's about to go, sorry, no time.